I'm 29, single, and the sort of person who sticks post-its on the bathroom mirror, reminding myself to breathe and drink water. That's why I booked a cabin in the North Carolina mountains, a solo reset. No dramatic breakup, no meltdown. I just wanted 2 days where I could write, sleep, and pretend my life wasn't running me. The listing looked exactly right. Small log cabin, 2 rocking chairs on the porch, keypad on the door. No key handoff, no host hovering, just me and the woods. Day one convinced me I'd nailed it. Birds at dawn, espresso at 7, real paragraphs on a blank document before lunch. I followed a narrow trail up behind the cabin, came back with mud on my shoes and that rare feeling that my brain was finally quiet. Around 5, I drove into town for dinner and groceries. The keypad had worked fine when I'd checked in. The whole thing felt effortless. By the time I came back, the sun was behind the ridge, the automatic porch light snapped on, and the trees went from peaceful to paying attention. I walked up, punched in the code from the welcome message. 4217. Red light, I frowned and tried again. Red, I checked the thread from the host, same numbers. One more try. Red, I texted. Hey, just got back and the code isn't working. Maybe it reset, they replied almost immediately. So sorry, we changed codes today. Try 6360. I entered it, green light, click. Relief washed through me until I stepped inside and caught a faint mint smell. Not cleaner, toothpaste, my toothpaste. I shut the door behind me, groceries in hand, and turned toward the bedroom. I'd left my suitcase zipped that morning. It was open now. My shirts, which I'd rolled to save space, were stacked and folded. Socks on top, shoes shifted, nothing missing, just handled. A small, desperate part of me whispered that maybe I'd messed with it and forgotten. I wanted to buy that. Then I saw my toothbrush. Wet. I hadn't brushed since morning. That's when I heard the water. Not a drip, the shower. Running hard in the hallway bathroom, the one I hadn't used. Over it, a low, off-key humming. Definitely male. I froze, still gripping the paper bag. I scanned for anything that could double as a weapon. Nothing but a ceramic mug on the counter and my car keys hanging on a hook that said, "Welcome," in curly letters. I eased backward toward the keys, trying not to rustle the bags. My phone buzzed in my pocket and nearly sent me through the ceiling. Zara, asking about our weekend plans. I thumbed my location in one sentence. There's someone in my cabin. The bathroom handle turned. You're in the wrong place, I called, trying to sound steadier than I felt. The humming cut off. The water shut down. Then nothing. That silence hit harder than the noise. I heard droplets pattering on the tub, the soft squeak of wet feet on tile, and nothing else. I didn't wait to see what came next. I bolted for the back door. The listing had bragged about a hidden spare key under the third deck step, a little magnetic box for peace of mind. I'd rolled my eyes at it when I booked. Now it was the only thing between me and whatever was down that hall. I slipped outside, dropped to a crouch, and groped under the third step until my fingers hit metal. Got it. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped the key twice, but it turned. I yanked the door shut from the outside and left the key jammed in the lock so it couldn't easily be opened from within. Then I ran. I hit unlock on the fob before I even saw the car, dove in, and tore down the gravel drive. Only when I reached the main road did I actually breathe. My fingers were trembling against the steering wheel. I called 911, laid the story out as calmly as I could. The dispatcher told me to park nearby, stay in the car with my lights on, and wait. Deputies were on their way. While I sat there in my idling car, I texted the host again. There's someone inside. Please call me. Typing dots popped up then. Oh my gosh, maybe one of the other guests mixed up cabins. I'll come by. Other guests. The listing had said, private property, no shared spaces. My heart rate ticked up again. 2 sheriff's cars eased up the narrow road, red and blue lights bouncing off the trees. I flagged them down and went through it all again. One deputy stayed with me. The other went to the porch, flashlight drawn. A third vehicle pulled in behind them, the host's SUV. He climbed out looking rattled, fleece vest, running shoes, palms up like he was already apologizing. "I think there's been a mix-up," he said. "We manage several cabins here. Sometimes guests go to the wrong one. Happens more than you'd think." "My toothbrush is wet," I said. He blinked. "What?" "My suitcase was rearranged. There's a man in the shower." He opened his mouth, but the deputy by the door called, "Sir, over here." The host joined him. They spoke quietly for a moment. Then I saw someone step out onto the porch. He was wrapped in one of the cabin towels, barefoot, water dripping down the steps. He squinted into the lights, looking more stunned than dangerous, like he was the one who'd been intruded on. The deputy kept one hand near his holster. "Sir, this isn't your rental." The man looked blank. "It's 16 Blackbird Trail, right?" The host pressed his fingers to his forehead. "No, this is 14. But the code worked," the man said. "You sent me this address." He held up his phone, still slick with water. The host leaned in, read the screen, and his face tightened. He turned to me. "There's been a mistake," he said. "He booked on our other platform. I must have given him the wrong code." "He told us the same thing," the deputy added, "that this code opened the door." I thought about the damp toothbrush. My shirts, folded and sealed in a plastic bag under the sink. The suitcase he'd unpacked like it was part of the amenity list. The man kept talking, tripping over his words. He swore he honestly thought this was his cabin, that the layouts all looked the same. Said he arrived, came in, unpacked, hopped in the shower. Claimed he hadn't noticed my stuff until I came back early. He was still babbling when another deputy came out from the back, holding a Ziploc bag up to the porch light. Inside were a few of my shirts, wet. "Found these under the bathroom sink," he said. "Guests don't usually store clothes there." Blood rose into the man's face. The host went paper white. They questioned him for a long time on the porch. Then they walked him back to his car so he could dress and give a formal statement. No cuffs, but no one treated him like an innocent mix-up either. A deputy asked if I'd walk through the cabin now that it was clear. Inside, everything looked almost exactly as before. That was the worst part. My suitcase was zipped again. My toothbrush was gone, replaced with a generic one from under the sink that I'd never opened. My favorite mug was washed and set in the drying rack. "Anything missing?" the deputy asked. I checked. As far as I could tell, no, just touched. I filed a report anyway. The host apologized on repeat. "Miscommunication. Honest mistake. This has never happened before." He promised a full refund and offered another cabin down the road. I said I was leaving altogether. I repacked in under 10 minutes, pinching my clothes like they were contaminated. When I picked up my laptop, I saw greasy, unfamiliar smudges on the trackpad. That bothered me more than I expected. The deputies waited in their cars until I locked the door. Then I drove straight to a chain hotel off the highway. The sign was garish. The room smelled like fake cinnamon, but there was a solid bolt on the door and a key that was definitely mine. I slept maybe 4 hours. The next day the host sent a long apology. He confirmed what he'd said on the porch. The other guy had booked through a sister app. An old system had synced the same digital code to both cabins, and he had accidentally texted the wrong address. He refunded everything and added, "This almost never happens, almost." I didn't write back. When I told Zara, she asked, "Do you think he meant to hurt you?" "I don't know," I said. That's the part that doesn't let go. He hadn't yelled. He hadn't chased me. But he'd been naked in my rented shower, using my toothbrush, folding my clothes and underwear like he was settling in. Living in my little weekend life for at least an hour, maybe longer. On paper, the host's explanation fit. The feeling didn't. Violations don't always arrive with force. Sometimes they walk in with the right code, make themselves comfortable and act like they belong. It's been months. I still pause outside every rental, listening for running water where there should be none. It's unnervingly easy for someone to be invited by accident. I went to the Adirondacks with a $20 tent, 2 packs of ramen, and the kind of burnout you only get from finals week. I wanted quiet, trees instead of traffic, sky instead of screens. One night alone, clear my head, go home smelling like smoke. I pulled into the campground loop as the sun slipped behind the ridge. My site was at the far end, tucked under some trees with a partial lake view if you leaned the right way. The only people nearby were a family 2 sites over with a beagle that wouldn't shut up. Beyond them was just forest. I set up the tent faster than I expected and felt overly proud for not snapping any poles. The fire ring still radiated heat when I hovered my hand over it. Someone had been there not long before. On the dirt beside it was a perfect ash rectangle, like the ghost of another tent. Same size as mine. Same diagonal seam pattern in the dust. Same cheap model, apparently. I told myself that was just coincidence and fired up the stove. Ramen, hiss of gas, mosquitoes whining. By the time the stars came out, I was half reading, half listening to the water. I fell asleep around midnight. Sometime after 3, I woke up with that heavy certainty that something outside had changed. Then I heard him. "You came back." The voice came from just outside the nylon, slurred, low, male. I didn't move. Moonlight turned the tent walls pale gray, and I could see a darker shape crouched near the zipper. A hand slid along the fabric. The whole tent shivered. "You came back," he repeated, louder now, and kicked the pole in one dull thump. I tried to tell myself it was some drunk who wandered to the wrong spot, but there was something in his tone. He sounded like he recognized me, like he'd been waiting. "If you're a real man," he said, "come out and face me." My heart clamped down hard. My phone was inches from my cheek inside the sleeping bag. I inched a hand toward it, willing the nylon not to rustle. 3:02 a.m. I texted Sam, "Man outside tent drunk not leaving." Then I called 911. The operator picked up immediately. I whispered the campground name and my site number and said there was a man outside my tent making threats. She told me to stay in place, stay on the line, and not respond to him. Outside, his footsteps moved in a tight circle. I could hear him breathing. The sour burn of alcohol made it through the fabric. He kicked the tent again. "Get out." "We aren't done." From farther off, another voice shouted, "Leave it, man, wrong site." Hope flared for half a second. The first guy didn't move away. "He came back," he snapped, more urgent. "Same tent, same spot." He started pacing, gravel crunching, muttering things I couldn't make out. The dispatcher whispered, "Rangers are on their way." "Do you have a car alarm?" "Yes." "Keep your thumb on the key. I'll tell you when to use it. Don't talk to him." His shadow leaned close enough that the canvas darkened. "Say something," he murmured. From the dark, the second voice tried again. "Dude, not him, let's go." The drunk ignored him. "Come on." "Be a man." I whispered just loud enough to carry. "I'm on the phone with the police." Silence. Then a quick, mean laugh. He flicked the corner of the tent with one finger. "You always were a tattletale." That rattled me worse than the kicks. Whoever he thought I was, it wasn't me. "Hit the horn now," the dispatcher said. I pressed the button twice. 10 yards away, my car exploded in noise. Headlights flashed, horn blared, sound ricocheting through the trees. The beagle went ballistic. Somewhere a baby wailed. Outside, the man cursed. Footsteps pounded away into the woods, snapping branches. A set of headlights swept over the tree-lined Ranger truck coming in hot. "Stay inside till they say it's safe," the dispatcher said. She didn't hang up until I heard a Ranger calling my name. I unzipped the tent an inch, then all the way when a beam of light hit my face and dropped. "You all right?" the Ranger asked. I nodded. My voice didn't trust me yet. He told me to stay put while another Ranger checked the area. Radio chatter floated back and forth. Two sets of prints headed toward the service trail, one of them said. After a few minutes, the first ranger came back. Looks like a drunk wandered from another site, he said. There was a fight up the loop earlier. We think he thought you were the guy he was mad at. When I mentioned how warm the fire ring had been, he nodded. Yeah, they were here before you. Packed up after we split them up. My whole night had been hijacked by someone else's unfinished grudge. He asked if I wanted to relocate nearer the camp host. The idea of tearing everything down at 4 a.m. sounded worse than staying. We'll keep circling till sunup, he said. If he comes back, don't talk, don't unzip, call again. You handled it the right way. When their truck finally rolled on, the forest stitched itself back together. The beagle settled, the baby quieted, the lake went back to its low, steady shushing. I lay there with my keys in my hand, waiting for more footsteps that never came. I finally drifted off as the sky started to pale. In the morning, sunlight made the whole scene look harmless. For a second I wondered if I'd dreamed it, until I saw the footprints. Deep heel marks circling the tent, angry ovals stamped into the dirt. One line veering into the brush, the other back toward the road. I made coffee and watched mist lift off the lake. Across the loop, a couple at a site with the same blue tent model as mine sat at their table, arguing quietly. One kept rubbing his temple. The other flicked a look my way and then away fast. I didn't need a ranger to tell me who had actually come back. Later, the same ranger cruised by. Morning, he called. We found them, same two from last night. One was passed out near the trail. The other says he tried to stop him. They're both okay. He's getting a citation for drunk and disorderly. Swears he was just settling it. You were just in his old spot. He gave me that sympathetic look people save for stories that ended better than they could have. Then he added something that stuck. When you camp solo, pick reservable sites or ones near the host, he said. Introduce yourself to your neighbors, and if someone starts mouthing off through your tent, don't answer. Silence throws them off. You're invisible until you unzip. Keep it that way. On my way out, I stopped by the campground bulletin board. Bear warnings, lost cooler flyer, fireworks ban. Nothing about a drunk prowling tents at 3 in the morning. Most real stories vanish with the dew. That night Sam texted, "You good?" Figure out who that guy was, I typed. Drunk mistook me for someone else. Deleted it, tried again, deleted that too, and finally just sent a thumbs up. Explaining didn't help. You had to feel it, the flimsy nylon between you and someone's anger. The way a whisper can feel like a blade. Since then, I've kept 3 rules written in Sharpie on the back of my camping map. Never answer taunts. Always keep keys within reach. Never assume quiet means safe. I just dropped a rebuilt transmission at a shop outside Flagstaff, topped off my coffee, checked my tires, and hit play on my drive until the sun sets playlist. Empty Highway is my version of therapy, straight lines, low music, no one asking anything of me. 40 stretched ahead in a steady gray ribbon, then the GPS chimed. Accident ahead. Faster route available. A purple line curved south off the interstate, promising to save 15 minutes. The detour road looked fine on the map. I'd taken app-suggested reroutes before and they'd always been legit. I took the exit. The ramp dropped onto a dirt road, hard-packed, not rutted. The blue arrow on my phone kept gliding along its neat new path. Continue on County Road for 6 miles, the voice said. To my right, the interstate rose and fell with the land, a handful of headlights shimmering and then disappearing behind low ridges. A strand of yellow tape fluttered from a juniper branch ahead. Old, sun-bleached, leftover from some past search or closure. The desert never hurries to clean up after people. I rolled my window halfway, 2 bars of service. Enough. About half a mile in, my headlights found a man standing in the middle of the road wearing a reflective vest. He raised one arm and motioned me forward. I slowed and tapped the horn twice. I'd seen nighttime road crews before. They usually had cones, trucks, floodlights, some sign they wanted you to see them coming. Here it was just him, glowing vest, no equipment. He turned his face slightly away from the beam, like he didn't want my lights on him. Otherwise, he didn't move. I stopped about 40 feet back. On my phone, the GPS arrow kept floating forward like nothing was wrong. Real workers make themselves obvious. Hard hats, radios, clipboards. This guy looked like half of an outfit. The quiet pressed in. I shifted into reverse and let the truck ease back a few feet. That's when he started walking toward me. Not running, just a sure, unhurried stride like he knew I'd wait. Out of the corner of my eye to the left, something darker moved in the brush. Low to the ground, pacing him. Decision made. I slammed into drive and swung the wheel for a wide U-turn. The back end fishtailed before it caught traction. He lifted an arm, maybe to shout, but I was already headed back the way I'd come. In the rear view, two pinpoints bloomed to life. Low, bouncing headlights from ATVs or dirt bikes tearing out of the dark and angling after me. Dust boiled up around them. They split, one on each side of the track like they were trying to bracket me. I pressed the gas harder. Not full throttle. I didn't want to lose control on washboard, but enough that every rut punched up through the frame. My coffee launched off the console and hit the floor. The road narrowed into a dry wash, a steel cattle guard glinting ahead. I hit it dead on. The slats rattled under my tires. In the mirror, one set of ATV lights jolted, sputtered, and went out. The other skidded sideways just shy of the grate. Then I was alone again, my taillights the only red in the mirror. I kept my hands in a death grip on the wheel until the dirt spat me back onto blessed, painted asphalt. I didn't slow down for several miles. Eventually, a gas station appeared like an answered prayer. Two pumps, flickering sign, one guy behind scratched glass scrolling his phone. I pulled up under the brightest floodlight and stayed there long enough to breathe 3 controlled breaths. Then I went inside. Was there a wreck on a 40? I asked. He frowned. Not tonight. You see something? I told him. GPS detour. Dirt road. Man in a vest waving me deeper. 2 four-wheelers giving chase when I turned around. He grimaced like this confirmed something. Locals fake detours sometimes, he said. They drop pins on the nav app so they route tourists off the highway. Easy pickings once you're out there. You're serious? I asked. People actually do that. Happened twice this year, he said. They wait for dark, throw on reflective vests so you trust them, then jack your stuff when you get close. Sometimes worse. DPS has been trying to nail M down. I bought a water I didn't want and pretended my hands weren't still shaking. Outside, the desert night pressed up against the windows like a wall. Back in the truck, I called Highway Patrol and gave them the coordinates, the description, everything I could remember. Do you need an escort back to the interstate? The dispatcher asked. I'm already on it, I said. There was a pause then. Stay on pavement. People love to say you got lucky. Maybe. But I think the only reason I'm here to hear that is because something about that scene. The single vest, the silence. The way he turned his face from my lights. Hit wrong fast enough for me to actually listen. When you describe it later, folks picture a calm dirt road under a huge sky. They don't feel what it's like when your headlights are the only thing between you and 2 shapes coordinating in the dark. I never saw a single clear face. Just rolls. The one pretending to help, the one waiting in the brush, the engines roaring to close the gap. I've replayed it 100 times trying to guess the plan. Maybe they'd box me in. Maybe they just wanted whatever was in the cab. Maybe they counted on fear doing the rest. Don't mistake confidence for authority. The people who are actually in charge want you to know who they are. The ones who do, they count on your doubt. A few weeks later, I stumbled on a post online. Someone else talking about a fake road closed near Flagstaff. Blurry photos of reflective tape, boot prints, the works. The comments were full of arguments and jokes. Probably hunters screwing around. Arizona cryptid, obviously, they laughed. It was far enough away that it could be funny. It wasn't far enough for me. I've never liked smart homes. No cameras, no voice assistants, no doors that lock themselves and tell you when you're wrong. I like metal keys and deadbolts I can see. Before a week-long trip to the coast, I did my usual pre-departure ritual. Watered the plants, set every blind halfway, ran the dishwasher, and snapped a photo of the stove knobs all turned to off. I left my little San Diego house looking the way I like it, neat. When I came back, it was. The second I opened the front door, I smelled my own perfume, recently sprayed. Not the faint echo from a week ago. That was wrong. Milo, I called, nothing. My cat is shy, but he usually answers with at least a grumble. The silence felt thick. The living room looked untouched. Mail stacked where I'd left it, shoes by the door. But in the kitchen, the universe shifted half an inch. The Tupperware of soup I'd left in the fridge was gone. So were 2 cans of La Croix. Not the kind of thing you expect a burglar to care about, but not nothing either. I tried to convince myself I'd spaced it. Then I saw the wine glass in the sink. I don't leave dirty dishes. Ever. Especially not my favorite stemless glass. There was a faint lip print on the rim, like someone had taken one deliberate sip. My bedroom was exactly how I'd left it. Duvet smoothed, pillows aligned. But when I checked the guest room, I stopped cold. The bedspread was tucked in too tightly. It had been used, then remade with hotel-level precision. Corners sharp, center smooth. That kind of tidiness is for company. In the hallway bathroom, I picked up the spare toothbrush I keep for visitors. Damp. The cup it sat in had a fresh ring of water. No one had stayed with me since Christmas. Downstairs, at the garage entry, the keypad smears jumped out at me. Oily arcs across the number pad, not in the pattern my fingers naturally land. Someone had been punching at it with their whole hand. Out back, I walked the fence line. One slat near the corner sagged at the bottom, bent just enough to crawl under if you flattened yourself. The grass there was mashed down. That jarred loose another memory, the spare key taped under the terracotta planter by the patio steps. I lifted the pot. Dust outline, tape peeled back and empty. I called a locksmith first, then non-emergency. The dispatcher sounded exactly like someone who hears versions of this all the time. Wait somewhere safe. Your car's fine. Lights off. Don't go back in until officers arrive. So I sat in my car across the street, engine off, watching my own glowing windows. It's a strange thing, seeing your house as if it belongs to someone else. It looked like any other place on the block. Solid, unremarkable, harmless. I couldn't stop staring at the kitchen window. The street lamp reflection made it look like an eye half open. The locksmith showed up, took one look at the cruisers pulling in behind him, and said he'd come back after the cops gave the all clear. Midnight slid toward 1. At 1:22 a.m., a shape crossed the kitchen window. Not a full figure, just the suggestion of shoulders and a head moving past the glass. The shadow paused at the sink, leaned forward slightly, then straightened and moved on. My stomach dropped. I called dispatch again. My voice did something I didn't recognize. "Stay in your car," she said. "Officers are already en route." 2 units glided up quiet, no lights. One officer came to my window while the others split and circled the house, flashlights sweeping. "Anyone else have a key?" she asked. "I had a spare under a planter," I admitted. "It's gone," she didn't scold. "We'll fix that." They went inside, room by room. I watched the beams of their lights pass through my windows like ghosts. Upstairs, back down, hall, pause, move on. Finally, one of them radioed clear. Inside, nothing looked ransacked. No drawers dumped, no smashed screens. That somehow felt worse. In the trash, they found a grocery receipt from 3 days earlier. My address listed for delivery. Eggs, bread, smoked salmon, sparkling water. All items currently sitting in my fridge. Someone had been staying here, shopping for here, using and replacing. They dusted the wine glass for fingerprints, just smeared partials. They photographed everything, the keypad, the fence, the empty tape strip under the planter. "Do you want to stay somewhere else tonight?" one asked. I shook my head. "I'm not leaving it again." When they left, the quiet pressed in like a second skin. The locksmith returned with his tool bag. He swapped every lock, front, back, side gate, even the little window latch over the sink. "Longer screws," he said. "Harder to kick." The new keys in my hand felt heavy, solid, almost like a weapon. Milo finally crept out from under the couch, stretching casually. He sniffed around the baseboard by the back door, tail twitching like he smelled something I couldn't see. I crouched beside him and wished I had his short memory. I tried sleeping in my own bed. The room felt wrong. Too full, like wearing someone else's jacket that still holds their scent. I picked up my pillow and moved to the guest room. That bed was too neat but somehow neutral. It didn't feel claimed. At 1:22 a.m. my body snapped awake all on its own. No sound, just dread. The house whispered and settled. Nothing moved. Still, I stared at the ceiling until morning. The next day an officer called. "No solid prints," she said. "No cameras on your block. We had a similar case in June, food gone, bed used, door locked behind them. Same general area." "Very tidy." "Any idea who?" I asked. "Could be someone transient. Could be someone local watching for travel posts, reading mail, learning schedules." Her voice didn't rise or fall. "They don't always take valuables. Sometimes they just live." Before hanging up, she said, "Think about cameras and motion lights. Maybe have a friend stop by when you're gone." I installed everything that afternoon. Motion spots on the corners, 2 small cameras. Texted my neighbor and asked if she'd send me a porch photo any night I was away. But the thing that keeps me up is whether my doors are secure. It's what they did while they felt entitled to my space. They didn't smash and grab, they occupied. Used my dishes, my soap, my bed, sprayed my perfume, brushed their teeth with my toothbrush. Put things back how they preferred them. If they'd trashed the place, I'd know where to put my anger. Instead, it felt like a stranger had come in and cared for my house. Who does that? Who lives quietly in another person's home for days, then leaves it almost nicer. I keep circling details. Why my perfume? Why remake the bed? Why buy groceries and barely use them? It reads less like malice and more like etiquette. A twisted version of it anyway. The prints went nowhere. The receipt was cash. Eventually, the case title in the online system turned from active to suspended. Whoever they were, they didn't wreck my home. They arranged it. So I rearranged everything I could. Furniture, art, even the rug orientation. Not because my layout was bad, but because I wanted my rooms not to match whatever floor plan lives in that person's head. I still can't sleep in my bedroom. It feels like someone else's room now. The guest room doesn't remember anything. That's where I sleep. People think fear is loud, shouting, breaking, blood. Sometimes it's just the kind of quiet where every object sits exactly where you left it, and you still know, without a doubt, that someone has been there. Someone once told me houses have memories. If that's true, mine remembers being taken care of by someone who wasn't me. Working nights at a beach bar in Destin means your clothes always smell like lime, sunscreen, and spilled rum. My shift ended a little after midnight. My shoes were full of sand, my arms tacky with sugar. I clocked out, grabbed my tote, and headed for the shoreline. My nightly ritual was simple: hit the public restroom, rinse my feet, tie up my hair, then walk the wet sand until my brain felt rinsed too. The restroom sat just off the boardwalk. Beige block walls. No windows on the front. I pushed the women's door open with my shoulder. 3 stalls, 2 sinks, empty. I took the last stall out of habit, hung my tote on the hook, and slid the latch. The fluorescent light hummed overhead. Normal. The outer door opened again. It didn't swing the way it usually did when someone shoved it with a hip. It eased inward, slow, then caught on the stopper with a soft click. I looked down, sneakers, not sandals or wedges. Men's sneakers, toes pointed straight at my stall. No movement, no sound. I waited for some obvious explanation. A woman's voice, a purse setting down, a restroom hand dryer. Nothing but the buzz of the light. Metal scraped. The outer door made a different sound as the deadbolt turned from the outside. Locked. My laugh came out high and wrong. "Hey, this is the women's side," I called, trying to make it a joke. The sneakers didn't shift. A voice slid in under the door, low, smooth. "I'll wait until you stop kicking." I actually laughed for real that time, a startled bark. "Yeah, okay, buddy." No answer. I stared at the gap between the floor and the stall door, heart pounding in weird little jabs. I could see the subtle shift of weight in those shoes. One bar of service on my phone. I tried 911 anyway. The call failed before it could even ring. Bartender brain kicked in inventory, not panic. What did I have? Phone, tote bag, foam, flip-flops. What did I need? Distance. Light. An exit. The only window I knew about was high, the narrow, slatted one above the stalls. Painted shut last time I'd noticed. About 5.5 feet up. I stepped onto the toilet seat. Porcelain creaked. The whole stall trembled. Outside, the shadow tilted closer. Same words, same tone, just this side of amused. "I'll wait until you stop kicking." This time it sounded like a promise. The stall door flexed inward under pressure. Once. Again, harder. The cheap lock rattled in its slot. I dropped back down and kicked my tote toward the hinge, shoving the thick strap under the gap until the door couldn't swing farther without tearing it. My hands were slick. I almost lost my phone again. I thumbed out a text to my coworker Sam, "Bathroom by East Boardwalk. Someone locked me in." Message failed. I wiped my palms on my shorts, climbed back on the toilet and grabbed the cold pipe behind me. The cinderblock wall scraped flakes of paint down my shoulder. The door shuddered under another hit. The latch groaned. "You're getting out," I whispered to myself. "You're getting out." The window frame was rough with paint. I slammed my shoulder into it once. Nothing, twice. A crack. Dust rained down. My arm screamed. Another blow slammed into the stall. The whole partition jumped. My tote strap creaked like it was about to snap. I threw everything I had into the glass. One of the upper louvers broke loose, tilting just enough to let a streak of humid air hit my face. I wedged my forearms through and hauled upward. One foot scrabbled onto the pipe. Behind me, the stall door crashed again. My phone slid from my waistband, hit the toilet with a sharp clack and bounced onto the floor. I didn't look back. Ribs scraped the edge of the frame. My shoulder burned as the paint tore skin. Then my knees cleared the sill and gravity did the rest. The drop outside was only a few feet, but I wasn't ready for it. I hit the sand hard, rolled once and scrambled up, ignoring the sting in my knee. The door behind me rattled so hard it sounded like the lock might tear free. I ran toward the nearest pool of light, yelling without caring who heard. "Help! Someone, please!" A couple near the dunes turned. The man's phone was in his hand before I reached them. The woman opened her arms like a finish line. "What happened?" she asked, steady. "Someone locked me in," I gasped, pointing back at the building. Wouldn't answer. "Men's shoes," he said. "It's okay," she said. "You're here now." The man dialed 911 and passed the phone to me. I managed my name, the location, the words locked in, and men's voice. Squad cars moved faster than time. 3 of them pulled onto the edge of the sand, painting the building in red and blue. 2 officers went into the men's side, then swept around to the women's and forced the door. Another stayed with me and my impromptu bodyguards. When they came back, one of them held up a plastic evidence bag. Inside was a loop of twine and a bent bobby pin. "The deadbolt was tied off from outside," he said. Twine ran along the ramp railing, easy to pull shut from a distance. The pin was probably to slip the stall locks if you didn't open up. Another officer brought my tote. The strap was half torn from being used as a wedge. There were a lot of scuffs around your stall, he added. They hit it pretty hard. You scared them off when you bylaid. You scared them off. I repeated it like I was trying on someone else's sentence. He gave me a professional look. Calm, not comforting. We think so. Sometimes they test doors, see how people react. You made noise, you moved, that's good. I hated that phrase, test who reacts. It meant there wasn't anything special about me, just timing. Being alone in the wrong bathroom at the wrong minute. They walked me to my car. My soles were cut from sprinting over shells. My hands shook so badly I fumbled the keys. An officer handed me his card. We're calling this attempted confinement. Keep your phone's location on when you run. Stick to areas with lifeguards or crowds at night. I nodded. Saying anything felt bigger than breathing. At the first red light on my drive home, I caught my face in the rearview, sand in my hair, paint dust on my shoulder. A thin red line where the glass bit me. I laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. The officer emailed the case number later with a note. Increased patrols by the East Boardwalk and a line in bold. Avoid isolated facilities after dark. Restrooms can be easily secured from the outside. I didn't need the reminder. That door and I were done. Fear didn't shatter me. It just reorganized me. I double-check locks now. I text friends when I'm on night walks. I listen harder. Some friends teased me. You really think they'd try again? Like the idea of someone out there checking stall doors was a spooky story, not my Tuesday. I didn't bother answering. It wasn't about them coming back. It was about realizing how fast routine can flip. 2 weeks later, on a bright afternoon, I walked past that same bathroom on my way to work. Sun high, families lined up. Kids running in and out, shrieking over sandy flip-flops. The building looked completely harmless. I stood there longer than made sense, watching people go in and out like it was any other day. Then I noticed a dark mark near the women's handle, a fresh streak of rubber at ankle height, like someone had shoved the door hard with the sole of their shoe. That was enough. Police never caught anyone. The twine was the kind you get at any hardware store. The prints on the door were messy and partial. A grainy parking lot camera showed a hooded figure walking out of frame just before the lights cut off. Maybe it was some traveler passing through. Maybe not. Maybe they'd done it before. Maybe they were practicing. It doesn't really matter because I've already made my choice. I don't treat empty as safe anymore. I don't trust quiet rooms. And if I ever have to pick between staying low and climbing up, I'll take the window. When that glass finally gave, the air on the other side didn't just smell like the Gulf. It smelled like being alive. If these stories made you realize how fast peace and quiet can twist into something else, tap that like button, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next scare. And tell me which moment stuck with you the longest. Halloween's closing in, so let's turn the lights down and the tension up. Click now to watch 4 disturbing trick or treating horror stories. Just remember, not every knock at your door is looking for candy. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.